sellers will call and say, I have 10 letters on my desk. So of those 10 letters, what makes you stand out? How are you personalizing that letter? And how are you connecting with that seller like no one else is? That's what I think about when I create my marketing.
Hey guys and gals, this is Trevor coming at you with another episode of the CarrotCast. And I'm really excited to have our guest on today because April, I don't know what customer number you were, April, but you were, I looked at your account today and I'm like, I know she's been with us for a long time, but I didn't realize it was like a long time. I'm talking way back.
Old school. Yeah.
Yeah. Way back within probably the first 6 to 8 months of the business. And, so you've been seeing a lot of the iterations and a lot of the changes and evolutions of our business. And I don't want to talk about that on this call. I want to talk about the evolutions in your business and the decisions you've had to make and stuff. So I'm crazy excited, but I want to introduce you, April Crossley, onto the CarrotCast.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll kind of set the foundation for people a little bit so they have some context for this conversation. So let people know where you are, what your business looks like today, and kind of what your team looks like. Is it just you or do you have a team, that kind of thing?
Sure. So I invest in Berks County, Pennsylvania, and not a lot of people know where that is. So it's about an hour and a half north of Philadelphia. So when people ask me where I live, I'm always like, Philadelphia. That's kind of all you need to know, because no one really heard of our town's really small, Reading, PA. And right now we just invest there. We've been investing for about 12 years, off and on, which I can get into in a little bit. So right now we're holding about 40 units of rental property. We flip anywhere from 8 to 10 houses a year. And we do private lending as well. And I have a small mentoring program that I do. So I kind of do a whole array of things, and I don't really have a big team. It's just me. My husband's a real estate agent, so that kind of helps. He has good insight into the market. He's been an agent for 15 years. So why we invest in Berks County is because we know it like the back of our hand. Someone can call me with an address and I can know like that whether I want it or I don't based on the price. So I run our investment company. He does his realtor thing, and funny thing is he doesn't really work with real estate investors. He has kind of a big client base, so our businesses are very separate. But my son is 22 and my son does a ton of stuff for me on the direct mail side. He's basically like a part-time assistant. And then I just took on another part-time assistant to pick up some more marketing stuff. So outside me and my 2 part-time assistants and having a property management company, because it just got to the point where managing was becoming too much to stay on top of everything. So we gave that up. That's it for the team. Yeah.
So I love it. So I want to unpack a few parts that as we dive in on the combo. You got the rental properties. So passive cash flow, long-term wealth. You've got the business where you're flipping some houses as well. You've got a small team. I mean, that's awesome. I want to dig into that. And also one thing I really, really love is I love the power of someone's environment and like where you work and where you live and how you surround yourself with stuff on the day-to-day, how it sets your mindset and just everything else. And for those of you watching the video version of this on YouTube, so if you're listening to this on iTunes, head over to YouTube, go find InvestorCarrot on YouTube and find this episode, or just go to CarrotCast.com and you can find the video version of this. But April, so behind you, you've got a whiteboard up there. You've got some notes, and I'm just going to read through some ones I can see. So healthy meals. I don't remember what the other one says. Workout, be cool, wear your sunglasses 24 hours a day. I want you to kind of like break that apart for me. So what's that about? Because I love it. It's obviously intentional. I want to know what it's about.
Some of it's just funny because I just like to be funny and write humorous things on there, like an inside joke between me and a friend. And some of it's just, I'm very visual. So a lot of times people will, even in the real estate business, say to me, oh, what app do you use for this? Or what reminder do you put in your phone? And my walls are plastered with huge sheets, like those huge Post-it note sheets that you can buy and put up. I actually want to do a chalkboard wall, but I haven't done it. I need to see all my tasks. If I set reminders on my phone and I don't keep things in front of my face, it doesn't happen. So I need those daily reminders. Like, this is what's important. Yeah.
That's a great point. And this is something, before we dig into your story and into the actual, how are you doing deals, things like that, I kind of want to break this apart a little bit, because I mean, whether you're a solo entrepreneur or building a team, I think that's one thing that all of us have some struggles with, is we go, okay, we get lots of ideas. There's lots of opportunities that we could tackle. It's easy to jump to this thing, to jump to that thing, but you can't really have success until you like focus on something and really tackle it. So it sounds like you're someone, a tactile person. You like to touch it, like to feel it, like to have it there in front of you. What happens when you're working with someone, your son, or have you thought about, if you were to build your team, maybe you don't want to, how would that work then if you've got everything there in front of you?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. And I, even like with my son, he takes care of a lot of marketing tasks. So I'll be like, this marketing task has to go out, this has to go out this date. And I send it all to him and he coordinates it all and takes care of it. But it still stays on my visual checklist that I might look at once a week. So, and then I'll cross it off, and then I'll put a new page of paper up, or I'll change something out on the whiteboard. So I have a hard time letting go. Control wise, I know that, one of my faults. So I still keep everything in front of my face.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm the same way. So there's all these technology tools. I put this out to people before, but this is my daily productivity sheet. It's a piece of paper, and I've got to have it in front of me. And I've got more orange sticky notes in this office than you even want to see. I've got like stacks and stacks of them. Because I'm the same way. Like, I've got to go out there, and if I have an idea or something like that, I know part of my team hates it, because I'm sitting there, we've got our project management software in front of us, and I'll be writing a physical note about it. They're like, get it online. I'm like, I will later. Yeah. But I've got stacks of them.
They make fun of me all the time. Paper, you're so old school. I'm like, I have to. And I carry a tablet with me everywhere, pens everywhere. I have to be able, when stuff comes to me, pull over the car, write it down, talk to Siri on the iPhone, whatever it takes. I just need to get it in some kind of like written format. So, yeah.
I love it. Well, you keep doing you. I love it. And even as you build the team, I mean, I saw a post the other day from Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, and she was in her office or something like that, this little storage room where she uses paper tablets, and it's kind of her idea thing. She writes her checklists on there. And she said it's always been the same brand, the same type of paper tablet, like little thing, different color binders or different color covers. But then she showed this room where she has her 10 plus years of collections of those, where she takes them and she keeps them. And she was kind of reminiscing going through those. So
that's awesome.
So cool. Yeah, it's cool.
Awesome.
So let's kind of circle back here. I took us on a little bit of a tangent there. So let's kind of circle back here. And you're a full-time investor today, but you made a transition in the last several years. I don't know exactly when, so we'll dig into it. But what were you doing before you dove into real estate? And kind of what was that moment where you're like, man, I really do want to do something else. I don't think it's what I'm doing currently right now.
So I worked in healthcare for 13 years. So my degree is actually in biology, as weird as that is for what I do today. And I wanted to be the CEO of a hospital. So I was in school for my master's degree. And long story short, my husband had 2 small rental properties when I met him. And when I met him, I was renting a house. I was working in healthcare. I was making good money. I had no one ever educated me about anything financially, how to balance a checkbook, how to buy a house, nothing. I didn't really have any concept of it. I picked up a book he had called The 1 Minute Millionaire and on vacation. And I read it, and I will never forget that day, because I was like, is this for real? This really happens? People buy houses and they pay down your mortgage and then they cash flow and you can flip. Really? Do people really do this? And I was it's one of those things where you pick up a book, you just read the whole book in one day because you can't stop reading. And that was a pivotal point for me, because it made me see the world completely different than how I was raised to see the world, which was get a good job, become the CEO of some company or hospital, work full-time, retire when you're 65. So that kind of was a turning point for me, and I became a little addicted, and I started reading more and more about real estate. And my husband's very analytical, so he'll read a million books and a million things, but I'm kind of one of those people that jumps and builds my parachute on the way down. I don't feel like I have to know it all before I start. I just want to start. So I was like, please, I want to take classes. I was in my master's program. I dropped out of my master's program to pay for real estate classes. Took some real estate classes. And while I worked in healthcare for a long time while I was learning about and doing real estate. So I actually retired 4.5 years ago, like retired from healthcare. I gave up my license. I can't go back and ever do it again. Everyone thought I was crazy. And I'm like, I don't want a safety net. I don't want that license there. So once you give up your license, it's very difficult to get back. So that was 4.5 years ago. So we probably started investing in 2004. We did our first flip project. We took classes. A wholesaler brought it to us. We had no money. We kind of knew what we were doing a little bit. My husband was a real estate agent, so he knew about market value. And all we did was take it to an investor in our area that was flipping. And we were like, we have this great deal. We know it's a good deal. Will you split the profit with us if we kind of put some sweat equity into it to save money? So we'll rip out carpet, we'll clean out, we'll do whatever we have to do. And he was like, sure. So I still didn't have a great understanding of how deals worked. I just knew I wanted to see one through. And it turned out that the gentleman that we teamed up with that was experienced, he was bringing the money, but it wasn't his own money. He was bringing a private lender's money, and we were bringing the deal. And at the end of the deal, his private lender came to us and said, hey, this was a great project. It went smooth. If you find more deals, come to me. I want to work with you guys. And he was a private lender for us for 10 years.
That's cool.
Over those years, we didn't buy anything with any of our own money. It was all private money. And then via him, we met more private lenders. So we bought that flip. Then we actually bought an apartment building, a 6 unit. And then 06, 07, the whole bubble happened with the height of the market. And I think I usually tell people, like, my biggest, looking back, hindsight's always 20/20. I think my biggest mistake was not buying anything during that time. Like, we saw the bubble coming because my husband was a realtor, and he was like, no way. Like, we're not buying stuff. I was working full time. He was working as a realtor full time. So we just kind of were going along in our jobs. But thinking that we couldn't find a deal because the market was so crazy. Whereas now the market's crazy now. And my thinking is definitely shifted to, you can find a deal in any market. You just have to be very cautious that it's a deal, and you have to dig a lot harder to find those deals. So I would say tail end of 05, 06, 07, we didn't buy anything. And then 08, 9, 10, we kind of went crazy. So, and then what was 4.5 years ago, 16, 15, 14, 2013, I think I left healthcare.
Gotcha. Yeah. So to kind of rewind this a little bit. So you had the job, you were going through the master's program, you read this book, you said, okay, this is more like what I want to build in life. People thought you were crazy, which oftentimes happens. You know, it's like, it's so funny because people will originally think that you're crazy from leaving what they deem as this comfortable thing. Yet we think of it completely different. I did a podcast episode not too long ago where it walked through my 8 core decisions I had to make in my life over the years. I kind of reflected back and went, like, what were those things I had to do? One of them was flip my risk profile. And how do you see risk differently than those other people who might have been going, shoot, you're crazy by leaving this comfortable job? Yeah.
People have been telling me I'm crazy my whole life, I guess. I mean, and I think when you just get excited about something and you're passionate about it and you just want to make it happen, I consider myself a very conservative investor. I'm not very risk adverse. We're very cautious with what we invest in. We're very picky with what we buy, extremely picky. But when something excites me, I don't question it. I just do it. I kind of just jump right off the cliff. So, and the whole the leaving my job and retiring from my job, when I dropped out of my master's program, people thought I was crazy. And when I left healthcare, people told me I would be back and I was crazy. And 4.5 years later, I'm still not back. And it's the leaving my job permanently was a well thought out, well planned out thing. So a lot of times I coach a lot of newbies now, and newbies will say, I'm going to quit my job. I'm so excited. And I'm like, okay, that adrenaline's great, but let me tell you why I didn't do that. Yeah. So there's just a lot to think about. So when we were flipping enough houses to replace my income for like 3 years consistently, then I felt, I guess, safe enough to leave my job. So, but then when you actually do leave, it's like,
yeah. And there's a couple really important things there for people. So you mentioned for you, you guys are very calculated in what you do, but when you see something, you jump on it. You go, okay, I'm making a decision. I'm not looking back. And then also you guys determine, okay, for me, as soon as we're able to repeat this financial replacement, not just have it happen 1 year, but or 1 month or 3 months, but we can repeat it. We can go, okay, I think we've actually kind of got this down now. And now I feel a lot better about making that leap. So it's not really this risk in your mind. It's more like probably it's riskier for you to continue with your job because now you're sacrificing time where you could be putting on your business.
Right. And I felt very much like guilty almost because I wanted to be the CEO of a hospital. I was very passionate about what I did in healthcare, and I honestly lost that passion. I would go to work and just be like, oh, I hate this. I just want to be doing real estate. I hate it. And I didn't feel like I was serving in my position from my heart the best I could because I wasn't all in like I should have been. So it wasn't only I felt it was time for me to leave. I definitely did, but I felt it was the best thing as well. Like I don't ever want to do something and just be trudging through it, I'm not happy. So
one last thing kind of on that journey to make that decision before we dive into the actual real estate stuff here is something really important. You mentioned like you got rid of your license, right? So you kind of made it so there wasn't an option to go back. And I think we've all probably heard the phrase burning the ships, that comes from Captain Cortez in the 1500s, where he landed there in Veracruz and gets out and basically says, men burn the ships. And they all thought he was joking. And he's like, no, burn the ships, because then they knew that they could not leave. They had no other option than to then completely go forward and move with that mission. And so you burn the ships, but you didn't burn the ships without being prepared first. So you guys had already replaced the income. You didn't just burn the ships and go, no option, I'm just moving forward here, but I haven't really started to get any traction yet. Man, that mindset is so big. If you would have kept the license, what do you think the chances are that you would have slinked back into that work if you wouldn't have kind of burned the ships?
I think pretty slim to none. What I did in healthcare required a lot. There was a lot of technology, and it required a lot of education to keep up with that. And you only have so much energy. So I was like, I can keep continuing to learn about this stuff, even though I'm not physically doing it in the hospital, or I can just let it go and focus all that energy into real estate now and make that into something. So I don't think I would have ever gone back. It's very hard once you're out of the loop with the technology. So that helped too. Yeah. And when I actually taught at a college, and I taught students to do what I do in healthcare, and I was building a program for that college, and I was working like 70 hours a week, and it was a state college, and I had cushy benefits. And just along the lines of leaving my job, it was kind of in stages. I went from full-time at this cushy college job teaching healthcare to I was there 5 years, and I went to my vice principal and was like, I'm leaving. I want to be a real estate investor full time. And everyone was like, you have state benefits, you have a state pension, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go work in the hospital more. And the reason I did that is because, one, I didn't have to put as many hours in. And two, I could work in the hospital from 3 p.m. to 11 at night. So all day I would work on my real estate business, and all night I would work in the hospital. And it was a physically draining job. But those are the sacrifices you make to make the shift, and I talk to a lot of people that make those same sacrifices. They'll give up an all-consuming job for something else, so they have more time to kind of start their real estate business. So
I love it. I love it. So let's kind of break apart your business model a little bit. So you guys have, what was it, about 40 rentals or 40 units. You guys have, you're doing somewhere around the 10 flips per year, it sounds like. So can you break apart for everyone listening to this and watching this, what is your business model specifically? So are you guys flipping a certain amount of houses every year so you can then buy a certain amount of rentals, or are they completely independent from each other? Kind of, what is your model and what's your purpose with your model?
Yeah, they're pretty completely independent from one another. I have to say, I flip houses. I don't love it. Okay. I don't. Of all the things I do in real estate, I'd say I love private lending the most, buying rentals and then flipping houses. How we got to the 8 to 10 a year, that's just kind of about on average what we're doing now with the marketing that we're doing. But they're kind of independent from each other. We really started out with the goal of how many houses do we have to flip a year to replace my income? Okay. And that was like 3 to 4. So for a while we were just flipping 3 to 4. But then as we started to grow our business and get our name out there, a lot of stuff just starts to come to you by referral and by your name being out there. So that number kind of started to grow on its own. So.
And then where do the rental properties come in? So you guys are flipping some houses, you're replacing your income. And then on the rental side of it, do you guys have a number right now where you're going, okay, I want to get to X amount of units and here's why? Or do you guys just kind of pick up the ones that show up and you don't really have the goals behind it? Kind of break that apart for people.
For the rental units, it's more of a cash flow number for us. So my flip properties are the now. Those are my flip properties are my income, and my flip properties go to like extra repairs towards my rental units. My rental units are strictly retirement. So as long as I'm young enough and healthy enough and have the energy enough to keep flipping the houses, I'll keep flipping the houses. But I'll also keep building the rentals for the future. But for us, every year we'll take our rental portfolio and we'll sit down in usually November and start planning for the first quarter of next year. And we look at where is our cash flow? How much cash flow are we getting off our rentals? And we have a cash flow goal. Like this is what we want in passive income every month from rental properties. Then will we stop buying rental properties? I don't know if we'll ever stop, but I really do want to once I meet that cash flow number, I can honestly say I will not flip houses anymore because it's just a lot more work. So, and
that's such a big deal, April, where we'll work with a lot of people who they get locked in on the business opportunity of wholesaling or flipping, but then they don't have the end game in mind with it. Are you going to flip and wholesale forever? If so, you're working your way into a job, or you've got to build a team so you don't have that daily job of doing that. Right. And they don't have that second part of it.
Right. And I talk to a lot of people that have teams and they've built teams and they don't really do a lot with flipping and they're very hands off. And I think that's great. And I think everyone just has to kind of know their personality. Like for me, I like to work independently. I don't want to say doesn't play well with others, but I just have very high standards. I don't want to have a huge team. I think because for me, I don't see flipping as something I'm going to continue doing. It's to me, it's short term. My eye is always on retirement. Where's my cash flow out now? How much more do I have to buy to get my cash flow to where I want it to be? And then I'm done and my laptop's going in the ocean probably.
So how many years out are you from that, do you think?
I'm thinking less than 5, maybe 3. Yeah.
That's exciting.
On the rental side of things, it's getting definitely more difficult to buy rentals just with how hot the market is now. So it kind of comes and goes in waves with the market. So it's hard to say, but I'd have to say between 3 and 5. This year we bought less rentals than we've ever purchased because everyone kind of wants, like, they think their property's covered in gold because of how values are right now. So, yeah.
Are they mainly single family or multifamily?
Right now my focus is multifamily, like anything 5 units and up. Yeah. So we bought an 8 unit in September. And that's I like that. I like that size property. Yeah.
So the next question is probably popping in people's minds is, in a market like this, like you mentioned, where it is really competitive, it's a seller's market in many spots, and there's a lot more competition for those properties too. Where are you guys finding the properties right now? Of course, you're a Carrot client, and we see leads coming through there. You mentioned earlier direct mail, but kind of what's that mix look like on how you're acquiring your guys' properties?
So everything we buy for us is off market. We've never purchased a property on the market in all the years that we've done it. It's just not something we've ever honed in on. For us, it's definitely, I would say the majority is direct mail on the website. And then a little bit coming from referrals from like attorneys or CPAs or someone that know, or even like past clients whose houses we've purchased cash that are referring someone else. So we do a lot of direct mail. We do. Yeah, so that's primarily where they're coming from.
What's working for you guys right now? Whatever you're willing to share, what's working for you guys right now on the direct mail side?
I'll share as much as anyone wants to know.
Cool.
Direct mail is kind of my favorite. And it's funny you mentioned about having a Carrot site forever, because I will never forget, I got a Carrot site when I first talked to Adrian, and Adrian reached out to me off of a blog post I did about direct mail and probate or something. And he mentioned this website thing, and I was like, what do you mean website? You're crazy, blah, blah, blah. But I got one. I've had it forever. Yeah. So on the direct mail side, just talking to Adrian, and we've become friends over the years, and I've learned a lot from him because my background is not marketing. So just listening to people that are in marketing and what they talk about, it's funny. Like I can say, what do you think of this letter? And it's the simplest thing. Like, don't use the word property, use the word house or use the word home. Or so I'm big on my letter, my direct mail letter. And when it hits mailboxes, I want people to open it. So I'm huge on my envelope size, my envelope color. I'll go with the seasons. Sometimes I'll use the websites that have like the fall stationery with the fall envelopes, if it's fall, or Valentine's envelope, whatever gets them to open that mail. So I think about what makes me open my mail, and that's what I send my letters in. Gotcha. And then my letter, I'm so picky about my letters, and I'm constantly revising them, but short, sweet, to the point. And I just think with so many investors in the market that the we buy houses cash isn't really working anymore. You have to get more creative with that, and you really have to connect with sellers. So even like with my students, it's funny, of everything you can teach them, I'm like, your letter is so important. Send me your letter. I want to see your letter. I try to hit pain points. Like, what are the seller's pain points? So for example, we mail to the eviction list. If you're mailing to the eviction list, what do landlords hate? They hate that they have to evict somebody, and they hate when they have tenants that they're afraid of. So I'll tell them in that letter, like, we take care of, or we buy properties with tenants in place, or we buy properties with non-paying tenants in place. And then I'll highlight it and underline it in Word so that when they open the letter, whatever else I'm saying up here and down here, it doesn't matter. Boom. Yep. That's the first thing that their eyes are drawn to. So same thing with code violations. We try to hit on the pain points, like, are you no longer able to take care of your property? And we're very much about, we're small town, we're from the county, we care about this area, we revitalize houses, we've been around for 10 years. We actually try to avoid the company branding in our letters. I want it to look like it's coming from your neighbor. So that's been working for us really well. And putting a picture, like usually I'll put a picture of myself on the letter and personalize it. Or I'll tell some people, put a picture of like you and your dog, or something, because their eyes are going to be drawn to you in the picture. Like, why is this person in this picture sending me the letter? And then whatever you have highlighted, and then they'll read the rest of the letter. So I want them to think, I want the seller to think, oh, she looks friendly. Oh, she buys houses with horrible tenants. I have horrible tenants. And this is causing me pain, and I should call this friendly looking person to resolve my problem.
I love it.
I put a ton of thought into what I say and how I capture people's attention. And the marketing we do now is we do code violations, we do evictions, I'll still do absentee owners with high equity. And the markets are really hot right now. So honestly, if I know there's some, like the zip code I live in is like one of the hottest zip codes in my market, I won't even market to it. I'll market 30 to 45 minutes outside of there, because as these hot markets become hot, they get more expensive.
Yeah.
And people know that their houses are in demand and worth more. So a lot of people can't afford them, so they start moving within commuter distance. And I think the average commute in America is like 30 to 45 minutes. So a lot of times, like I have some students in Florida and they're like in the #1 flipping zip code in the nation. They're in competition with foreign investors. And I tell them, look, tell me what cities are 30 to 45 minutes outside of your market. And in my same market, I do that. So it's a lot of planning and focusing, like targeting a small niche area as opposed to saturating my whole county. Yeah.
It's so important too, because we'll talk to a lot of people in, let's say, Houston or Dallas or Miami or places like that. And anytime they're having a hard time kind of penetrating the market further, it's the same thing. It's like, what other markets would you buy in outside of that? And most of them are pretty willing to look there, but some of them are like, no, I really want to keep buying here. Well, cool. But look at this other segment of it, just like you're mentioning, it's so big.
Yeah. And there's money to be made in those little niche markets. And sometimes that takes driving outside of that big city downtown area and just going to explore the little niche areas. But usually once you find them, it's well worth it, because your competition then just becomes so narrow. It becomes much more narrow. So then your direct mail becomes much more effective. Whereas the zip code I live in is like the most in-demand zip code, and people from Philadelphia, speaking of Philadelphia, because it's a really hot market, now they're starting to invest in my market. No one even knows my market. And there's nothing really going on, but their market's too hot. But all they know, they'll basically ask what's the hottest zip codes in school districts, and they'll market to those. So sellers will call and say, I have 10 letters on my desk. So of those 10 letters, what makes you stand out? How are you personalizing that letter? And how are you connecting with that seller like no one else is? That's what I think about when I create my marketing.
And the connection's so big. So I put a blog post out in our blog, it was probably 3 or 4 months ago, called Inside the Mind of a Motivated Seller. And I walked through this decision framework that we all go through whenever we're making purchases, but your sellers are going through it too. And the first thing is problem aware, right? First of all, they've got to be problem aware before they're going to be looking at our marketing. That's obvious. As soon as they recognize that they have the problem, then they'll notice the bandit sign up there, or they'll actually look at that direct mail piece instead of tossing it. They'll also, at that point, they'll start to go to Google and they'll start to search things because now they have a problem. And next they're looking for solutions. So then after they get those 4 or 5 or 10 direct mail pieces and they open up some of them, they maybe resonate with a few more than others. And then they do some Google searches and they find your site ranking really well there at the top of Google and some other ones. Then they've got like 4 or 5, 6 different options. Now they're solution aware. It's like, okay, well, there are these real estate agents that might be able to do this. And then there's these 6 or 7 people that pretty much offer like, it seems like the same thing. They all say that I can buy it, they'll buy my house, and they all say that they'll do it with cash, and they all say that they'll do it fast. And then that's where it comes into what you're talking about, which I call the vetting and verifying phase. As soon as they're solution aware, you don't need to tell them over and over again that you can buy their house. They already know that. You need to tell them exactly why you should be the one that works with them and why you're the credible one. And are there any other things that you do even after you talk to the seller or meet with them to really further build that relationship and credibility?
I'm really big on follow-up. I think follow-up is huge. So usually even after I meet with them, even if they don't want to sell immediately or they don't accept my offer, I'll send them a little handwritten follow-up note card with my business card inside. I might check in with them 6 months later. You never know when they're going to sell. And I also try to take the pressure off of sellers. I think every phase of the process, when you're looking to buy someone's house, you have to be on your game. You have to be on point. So from the time they call, you have to be very patient and understanding, and you have to listen to them. And a lot of people don't listen, okay? And you have to make a connection with them personally on the phone. When you look at the house, you have to be professional and you have to be nice and you have to be sympathetic with their situation. I mean, I've purchased houses from people that tell me, your offer is a little bit lower than this person, but I'm going to sell to you because that person just came in and was basically like, here's what I'm going to offer you, sign a contract today. And if you don't sign it today, you're never going to get another offer like this ever again. People don't like, you have to connect with, they're a human being, like with a person. It's not about what you want. So we just try to be very no pressure. And I tell sellers, I come in and assess your home and I provide you multiple options for selling. And then you get to pick the option that works best for you. And if one doesn't work for you, that's okay too. And I think they connect with that because then they're like, okay, this person's not going to pressure me. They're not going to hound me. They're not going to call me incessantly. Like, we're either going to work together and it's mutually beneficial, or we can't work together. So,
and that's such a big deal right there, April, because there's so many, especially newer investors that come in, and not just newer ones, but there's so many investors that come in and they think that they've got to use all these tactics and techniques, all these fancy sales things. And while it's nice to know them, it's nice to know those things, mainly so people don't use them on you. But it's nice to know them. But at the same time, like you're talking, it's more about like actually caring about the person and actually asking them real questions that show that you care, and being a real person, like you're saying. Like, how would I want my grandma to be taken care of? Would I want them to?
All the time.
It's such a big deal.
Yeah. And people say, what do I say to a seller? What do I do? I'm like, you be yourself and you care about them. That's what you do. And it's even on the level of marketing. Like we were talking about code violations before, and I tell people, the market's competitive. Get out there and connect. So go to your borough office, introduce yourself. Hey, I live in this township, or I live in this borough. I buy properties and revitalize them. I really care about my neighborhood. If you ever have any problem properties, feel free to send them my way. Make up a pamphlet for them to keep at the borough. So if people are behind on their taxes or water bill, they can hand them that pamphlet. You just really have to show that you care about your community and people and go the extra mile. And that, I had someone go to a codes office the other day that I'm coaching, and the codes office or the borough office was like, here's a list of 7 houses of homeowners we'd like you to contact so that you can, their properties are in disrepair and we think they need help. And I was like, that's awesome, because she took them brownies and just connected with them like a human being. So that's so really cool. All it takes. Yeah.
Business is so much more fun that way too. And I think kind of going back to the tactics and technique stuff, like I said, good to know the stuff, but I can tell you what, I mean, and I've done it before, where business is a grind when you're not out there really building real value and having fun and connecting with people and building more friends than enemies. You yourself, like you don't feel good about it either. And so go out there, guys and gals, and just be that person. I'm looking at our core values poster on the wall right now. It's like, always genuinely care. That's one of our core values. And be a beacon of positivity and possibility, gratitude for everything. I can keep on reading through them, but live those things and you're going to be more successful on the investment side. It's probably not as sexy as saying this little cool little thing, this takeaway sale and whatever, but it's real.
It's like people talk about neuro-linguistic programming and how you talk to people with neuro-linguistic programming. And it's like, why do you have to use neuro-linguistic programming? Just be yourself and care about them, and things will flow and happen. You don't need to trick them into anything or trick them into saying something or selling to you, you know? So
I kind of want to make a little bit of a transition to the online side. And I know direct mail is your primary thing, it sounds like. And somewhere along the way, 3 years ago or so, might have even been literally it was right when we started pretty much. Because you're on our legacy plan. I'm like, she's getting the deal of the century, and I love it. So what made you, and it sounds like Adrian reached out to you, but what made you finally feel, okay, maybe I should have some sort of web presence? And then next, because you're ranking pretty well in multiple phrases I was looking at before this in your markets, what are you seeing that it's doing for you and your business, given that direct mail is your primary source?
So I decided to take the jump into it because just talking to Adrian and basically him bringing to my reality, because I'm old school with pen and paper, that really, in today, you're not really legit unless someone can find you on the web. So if you're just sending them a note and you don't have, they're going to look for you. They're going to Google you, and you want to make sure they're finding something good or something professional, or that you actually are a legitimate company. So that's kind of what had me take the jump into it. And it's interesting now because with direct mail, I'm finding that on my direct mail, I can put my name, my phone number, my direct email address, and my website, and people will go to my website and fill out my contact form. They won't email me directly. They won't call me, but they'll go to my website, then I'll contact them and they'll say, oh, I got your letter in the mail. And it's like, oh, my direct contact info is on there, but they don't, I'd say a lot of the time they don't use that. They'll go to my website anyway. So
I think a lot of it too, like if you put yourself in that mental perspective, everyone who's listening to this, when you're going out there to engage with something and you're not sure what it's going to be like. I know for me, it's like, oh man, I don't want to get on the phone with them because is it going to be this hard sale pitch thing? Like as soon as you hop on the phone with someone, there's more of this commitment that then all of a sudden you've got to, if it's going down the wrong direction, you've got to kind of wiggle your way out of it. And there's an actual interaction, but it's so easy to then just go to the internet and go, well, let me actually see who they are first. And then I'm kind of going down that education path. And that's why it's so important. Like you mentioned, that it's not that it's just a website. Like anyone can have a website, but I've seen plenty of websites that actually reduced credibility once the person landed there because they didn't look good. They looked terrible on mobile. They didn't really talk about the person. The copy was really bad. No good, clear calls to action, all that kind of stuff. And of course, we take care of that for you guys. But on the credibility side, it's so big. And we all do that every day, but we forget that our prospects and our clients are human beings too, and they work the same way. They work the same way.
And we're trying to make that even easier. Like now I'm trying to develop a seller packet that I can put on there so they can, so that a lot of sellers will call me and immediately ask, what's this all about? You know, even if they go to your website, they still want to see, you know, testimonials. What do you mean you give us options for selling? What kind of people, what kind of houses do you buy? They still have all these extraneous questions and they sometimes are afraid to ask them, I'm finding. Even when I talk to them via email, you can just tell they're kind of holding back. So I try to be very forthright with them and say, here's my seller packet. It has testimonials. It has kind of everything from A to Z about our company, what we do, how we can help you if you need help, what our numbers look like, everything in this nice little package. Take your time, read over it. If you think I can help you, let me know. So I'm pretty low pressure and I want to be very transparent for them so that they're comfortable.
And transparency is one of the best ways. That's another one of our core values. That's one of the best ways to really build credibility. And this is something I've kind of called the industry on the carpet a couple times this last year and talked to some big investors and at some big masterminds and throwing that out to people. I'm like, hey, this not just real estate investors, but real estate agents and attorneys and other people like that. They're always among the least trusted professions in America. Based on all these surveys, and you start to look at it and go, well, why is it? And almost every time, not every time, but almost every time, oftentimes it's because the person doesn't know the process. There's like the process is obfuscated in this mysterious thing. And mortgage brokers is always on there because you're always going, are they ripping me off? Like, I'm not, are they? They seem really nice, but it's because they're not transparent about the process. So can you imagine this? If I was to walk into a mortgage broker and the mortgage broker's like, I am going to show you my rate sheet. Like, this is my rate sheet. I'm going to show you how I read it. And this is exactly how much money I'm making on it. The first thing that's going to pop up probably in people's minds is thinking the same thing that I think when you go to a car lot and they say, we're going to show you our invoice. Invoice is bogus. But like if you can go back in there and show, okay, this is transparency in how I do this. All of a sudden the person's like, oh my gosh, I get it. Go for it. Yeah. I
was just going to say, but I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's people, the whole people telling you crazy. I mean, we've been telling homeowners the market value of their home from the time we started investing. And I always tell homeowners, I always give you the market value. I'm going to give you the market value, and I'm also going to show you how I arrive at my number, because most people think, oh, it's worth $100,000 on the market. You do X number of repairs, and that's how you come up with what you pay. It's like, no. There's a whole lot of other stuff that goes on in that calculation. So we're super transparent. And I just find that it makes them feel like, okay, you have a method for this. You're not just coming in here and throwing a number at the wall and seeing if I'll accept it or not. You really have reasoning behind why you're paying what you're paying. I do this as a business. This is what I look for in profit. Here's your market value. Boom, 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 boom. We subtract all this off. This is how we came to this number. And they're usually, if they're motivated, which is who we go after as real estate investors, motivated sellers, it's all about you solving their problem anyway. So you can show them the calculation. It makes them more comfortable, but they're not going to dicker with you over the price if they're comfortable with you. So
I love it. So on the online side, I was looking in there today, and you've been with us for a while, but you've got hundreds and hundreds of leads in there. Do you find those leads are different quality? Do you find the people who are coming through organic, where they type "sell my house fast," Berks County or whatever, are you finding any difference there? And also, is your lead to close ratio any different from the online versus offline? We hear reports on both sides where, someone's saying my direct mail lead to close ratio is 40-1 in some markets, and then my online is 1 in 15, things like that. Do you guys see any of that kind of in your market?
Not really. I find that it's pretty similar. I actually find that typically through the website, those sellers seem more motivated to me. When I deal with sellers that are coming through my website, they seem more motivated because they're out there typing in, like, basically, how do I save my house, or how do I sell my house fast? So they're seeking you out. So just the conversation with them goes differently. Whereas they're more ready to jump and build the parachute on the way down than I am. Whereas I find when I do direct mail, those sellers want to sell, but they're more cautious, I would say. They're motivated, but they're people that come through the website are more, I need to sell tomorrow. That's what I found.
And so I'll wrap this part of it with this is like I said, you're ranking really high in those markets for some phrases. How did you get there? I know you met Adrian early on. Adrian introduced you to Carrot, and I remember when he did way back when. And you and I have chatted through some of our coaching calls and things like that. But did you do your own SEO? Did he do it? Kind of how did you go from signing up to getting a great ranking that gets you leads and deals?
Yeah. He does that. I work with him on that. And I'm very hands-off with everything in my business, actually. I'm pretty much like, you're a professional at this. You do this, you do this, you do this. And I do marketing. That's what I'm good at, the direct mail marketing. So I'm pretty hands-off with it. And I think the ranking also has a lot to do with, you, like you said, like just with the age of the website, too. I mean, I think there were other websites in my county, but not a lot. And they weren't Carrot websites, so they're not optimized to rank. They're just somebody's making their own website somewhere. And when I can honestly say, when I first started with a website, I didn't understand. I was like, well, I can just make a website here, and you learn that how important that is as you go along. So when I see people on Facebook in these real estate groups talking about how, you can just create your own website here, I'm like, no, don't do that. You actually want it to be able to rank and do things. Don't create your own. And you have to learn that the hard way. But it was kind of up, and I think not difficult to get it to rank, just because there wasn't a lot of competition, and two, it's been around for a long time now, long time. And I think when people compare like where their website ranks to where other people's website ranks, you have to take so many things into consideration: size of the market, competition in the market, how old is the website, how much time are you giving it? It definitely takes patience, for it to get there. And a lot of people don't have patience, but they should, because as it gets there, it's well worth it.
It's entrepreneurship. It's such a long-term game. And I'm going to finish it with this, and I'll toss a question your way. I know for me here at Carrot, we've got a really, really long-term game. We have from the day one. We weren't trying to build this thing fast. We're like, we're going to build it right. It's going to build slow. It's grown fast, but we built it very intentionally with not having big spikes. It's always just like this. What advice would you give someone who, your people that are like your students, right? So what advice do you give your students when they're making the decisions that they want to invest, they're digging in there, and let's say they had the first moment where they are hesitant on whether they made the right decision to invest into wanting to be an investor, what is it that you tell the person at that moment to get them over that mental hump so they push forward through that hard part?
I'm very big on just going with your gut and going with your heart and pushing through, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're either going to love it or you're going to learn a lesson that's going to help you down the line and change your entire life. So there really is no falling. Everything's just going to be a lesson. It's scary. It's really, really scary. But I think if you don't push through that fear, you will never see growth. Every step in my business has been scary. Leaving my job was scary. You know, replacing your income with flips, or your income doing flips, is scary. Buying rent, every property I buy, I'm still like, am I making the right decision? I'm making the right decision. And then I think, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, if the property has a lot of issues, then I have to suck it up, buttercup, and get my butt in there and start painting and ripping out carpet. And you do what you have to do to learn the lesson and get through it. Yeah.
I love it.
It's just the push through.
No, I love it. So your story is awesome. It's really cool. I love seeing you made the leap, you made the transition. You're very methodical in the model, and now you're teaching other people how to do the same thing. So if people want to connect with you, if they want to follow you, follow your journey, where can people go to find more about you or follow you?
My email is april@lazygirlrei.com. And they can follow us a couple ways. I have a page on Facebook, Lazy Girl Real Estate Investing, and I have a group on there called Coffee Talk with Lazy Girl REI. Cool. And we're just huge on helping newbies get started, especially with no money, because that's how I started, and it's scary. So yeah, that's kind of what we specialize in.
I love it. So guys, check out April over there. Follow her. She's doing some amazing things, and we're just so grateful to have you as a long time client. Like I said, I mean, you're probably one of the first 100, 150, I don't know, somewhere in there. So it's very, very grateful for people like you. And if you had any advice for people that are looking at Carrot or looking at, starting some sort of website, what kind of advice would you give that person before they make their decision?
Listen to the professionals. Listen to the professionals. When I first got my website, I was like, I want my website to look like this, and I want it to say this, and I want it to do this and do that. And Adrian was like ready to kill me, because he was like, no, you have to understand why we tell you to do what we tell you to do, and why you need it to say what you need to say. And it all has to do with how you rank and how people find you and keywords and this and that. And I had no understanding of that. So my best advice, if you're thinking about getting a website, one, you guys are awesome, hands down the best, because not only are you a website company, you also understand real estate investing. So some other website companies do websites for real estate investors, but you understand how the seller thinks, and that is so important in any form of marketing. And just to listen to you guys. Don't try to change your website like crazy, because the way you have it is what makes it work. So Sweet. That was one of my biggest mistakes when I first got my website. I learned my lessons.
I love it. Well, thank you for spending time with us here today, April, on the CarrotCast. And everyone, go find more information about April on lazygirlrei.com, correct?
Yep, you got it.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, have an amazing rest of the week, guys. Hey, thank you, April. See ya.
Thank you.